Hello there, hi everyone. I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to Readings Machiavelli's Discourses. Today we start Book 2. Now, Book 2 has 33 chapters. I'm sure about this. I'm going to get punished again. That if I eventually go check my discourses and say, "Oh no, but it's 33." This is that weird thing. The theme moves from internal issues to external issues, right? So we'll look at the question of this. So internal affairs, constitutional affairs, to things like this. Let's stop here and just turn to the chapter. The first one will be there's an introduction. There's a thing. So the second one, let's go right here. This is the preface. Now, let's go with the preface. So today we're looking at the preface of Book 2 of the Discourses. Men always praise ancient times, but not always reasonably, and accuse the present. They are partisan of past things in such a mode that they celebrate not only those ages known to them through memory that writers have left to them, but also those that once they're old they remember having seen in their youth. In other words, people are partisans of the past. They're members of the past, either that they've learned through writers or through their memories, right? The time was always better in the old time, our memories of things. And he says that we always remember things better than they actually were, and sometimes, right? When this opinion of theirs is false, as it is most often is, I'm persuaded that the cause that leads them to this deception are various. The first, I believe, to be that the truth of ancient things is not altogether understood, and that most often the things that would bring infamy to those times are concealed, and others that would bring forth their glories are rendered magnificent and even and very expansive. So in other words, things that would condemn them, the negatives are hidden, and the things that we bring forth their glory is rendered more magnificent and more expansive. For most writers obey the fortune of the victor, so that they make their victories glorious. They not only increase what has been virtuously worked up by them, but also render illustrious the actions of their enemies. They do it so that whomever is born later, in whichever of the two provinces, the victorious or the defeated, the causes to marvel at those men and those times, and is forced to praise and love them most highly. Because of this, all men hate things either from fear or from envy. Two powerful causes of men come from being, in other words, two powerful causes of hatred comes to be eliminated in things. They either come from fear or from envy, right? This is hate, to hate things because of fear and envy. Two powerful causes of hatred come to be eliminated in past things, since they cannot offend you and do not give you cause to envy them, right? In other words, again, this is the past things. They don't bring fear. You don't hate them because you don't fear them and you don't envy them, right? But on the contrary, happens with those things that they are managed. The contrary happens to things that are managed to be seen, that are managed and seen, right? Things that are managed and seen, present to you, you can have fear and hate and envy about them, and that leads to hatred, right? Since the entire knowledge of them is not in any part concealed from you, and together with the good, you know many other things in them that displease you. You are forced to judge them inferior to ancient things, even though the present may in truth deserve much more glory and fame than they. I am not reasoning about things pertaining to the arts, which have, in other words, now you make a point, now you gotta say this. This is not about things pertaining to the arts, to which much clarity in themselves that the times that take away or give them little more glory than they may deserve in themselves. But I'm speaking of those pertaining to the life and customs of men, of which such clearer testimonies are not seen. So in other words, he's not talking about the arts, the question of arts, whether the arts are better and like this. It's the customs of the lives and customs of men he's talking about. Because why these things are not clear. The testimonies are not always clear. Those testimonies aren't seeing the arts and the things. There's the things unseen, and we can know them and you can judge them. Now, these things you can't always see or even know, and therefore can't judge. 2, I reply, therefore, that the customs written about above in praising and blaming are true, but it is not always the true. But it is not at all always true that to do so is to err. In other words, to do so is to err. In other words, that the customs written above about praising and blaming are true, but it's not always true that to do so is to err. For it is necessary that they sometimes judge the truth. For since human things are always in motion, either they ascend or descend. So human things are always in motion. They ascend or descend. They incline, they get better, they get worse. A city or a province is seen to be ordered for a political way of life by some excellent man, and to go on for a time, always increasing towards the best by virtue of that order. He who is born then in such a state and praises ancient times more than modern deceives himself. And his deception is caused by the things that were said above. But they who are born later in the city or province, when the time has come for it to descend towards the worse side, do not deceive themselves then. Right? This time, it was better back then. Now at this point, if it's ascending still, it is not better back then. They are deceiving themselves. But it's in decline that what is said is true, right? They do not deceive themselves. And in thinking about how these things proceed, I judge the world always to have been in the same mode, and there to have been such, in other words, in the same mode, and there to have been as much good as wicked in it. So he's going to be judging this. He says, how I perceive. I judge the world always to have been the same mode, to have there to have been as much good as wicked in it. But the wicked and the good vary from province to province, as is seen by one who has knowledge of those ancient kingdoms, which varied from one to another because of the variation of customs. Through the world though the world maintained the same. In other words, that the world is the same, but the customs, the variations of customs are different. Right? Okay. So therefore, the world, in other words, they varied from one to another because of the variations of customs, though the world remains the same. There was this difference only, that where it had first placed its virtue in Assyria, it put it in media, and then in Persia, until it came to be in Italy and in Rome. Right? In Italy, this is Plutarch's Moralia de Fortuna Romanum, right? Fortune of Rome. And if no empire followed after the Roman Empire that might have endured and in which the world might have kept its virtue together, it is seen nonetheless to be scattered in many nations where they live virtuously, such as the kingdom of the Franks, the kingdom of the Turk, and that of the Sultan, and the people of Germany today. so that Saracen sect earlier, which did so many great things and seized so much of the world after it destroyed the Eastern Roman Empire, the Saracen, the Muslims, right? They did so much great things. They seized so much of the world after it destroyed the East Empire. The virtue that is desired and praised with true praise has thus been in all these provinces after the Romans were ruined, and in all these sects, and still in some, and still is in some part of them. So there's, in other words, that greatness that was still present. It's there. It was, but it also remains. And he says, right? And the one who was born there and praises past times more than the present could be deceived. But whoever is born in Italy and in Greece and has not become either an ultramontane, in other words, over the mountains, right? A supporter of the power beyond the mountains, such as the French, right? Ultramontane. In other words, whoever born in Italy or Greek and has not become either an ultramontane in Italy or a Turk in Greece has reason to blame his times and to praise the others. For in the latter they are very many. For in the latter there are very many things that make them marvelous, and in the former, the present, there is nothing that recompenses them for every extreme misery, infamy, and reproach. So the words, the Greek, the Italian and the Greek have a problem. If you're not for the ultramontane, the French, what is great in Italy? Only the past. And the Greeks, that what is great in Greece, but only the past, is the Turk now runs them. In other words, everything, that there's no observance of religion, of laws, and the military, but they have stained with every other type of filth, every filthy reason. In other words, every type of filth, every filthy reason. Pardon. Pardon. I should break, but I need to finish this. So in other words, that they have nothing observant. Their religion, their laws, and their military have been stained by every type of filth, every reason, right? And these vices are so much more detestable as they are in those who sit as tribunals, command everyone, and wish to be adored. Right? This is, in other words, they're more detestable than those who sit at as they are in those tribunals, as tribunals, command everyone and wish to be adored. So therefore, this is that problem. 3. But returning to our reasoning, I say that if the judgment of men is corrupt in judging which is better, the present epoch or the ancient, in those things of which, because of their antiquity, it could not have perfect knowledge, as it has in its own times. It should not be corrupted among the old in judging the times of their youth and old age, since they known and seen such former and latter equally. This would be true if men were the same of the same judgment and had the same appetites through all the times of their lives. In other words, if they had the same appetites, same judgments, and the same appetites all the time, then that would be true. It would be hard to say that why they do that. But meant they change, right? They don't remain constant in their appetites or their judgment. But since these vary, even if the times do not, they cannot appear the same to men, who have other appetites, other delights, and other considerations in old age than in the youth. Since men, when they get old, lack force, and grow in judgment and prudence. It is necessary that those things that appear to them endurable and good during their youth turn out to unendurable and bad when they get old. And whereas for this they should accuse their judgment, they accuse the times. Besides this, human appetites are insatiable. For since from nature they have had the ability to wish, to desire all things, and from in other words, desire all things. Okay. In other words, beside this, human appetites are insatiable. Since from nature they have the ability and the wish to desire all things, and from fortune the ability to achieve few of them. There continually results from this a disconnect in the human mind and a disgust with the things they possess. So in other words, they have nature gives them an infinite desire to want and desire to want for, but their fortune gives them in other words, from fortune the ability to achieve them are few. The desires they want, nature gives them desires that they can have infinite wants, but their fortune, their situation, and their fortune of their situation gives them opportunities of few to achieve them. And there's a disconnect between the minds and the disgust with things they possess. This makes them blame the present time, praise the past, and desire the future. So they blame the present, they praise the past, but they desire the future, even if they are not moved to do this by any reasonable cause. Even if they are not moved to do this by any reasonable cause. I do not know, thus, if I deserve to be numbered among those who deceive themselves. If in these discourses of mine I praise too much the times of the ancient Romans and blame ours. In other words, am I succumbing to the same problem, right? And truly, if the virtue that then one used to reign, and the vice that now reigns were not clearer than the sun, I would go on speaking with more restraint, fearing falling into this deception of which I accuse some. In other words, if it wasn't that so, in other words, the situation, in other words, and truly, if the virtue that used to reign and the vice that now reigns was not clear as the sun, I would be more restrained. But since the thing is so manifest that everyone sees it, I will be spirited in saying manifestly that which I may understand the former and of the latter times, so that the spirit of youths who may read these writings of mine can flee the latter and prepare themselves to imitate the former at whatever time fortune may give them opportunity for. In other words, he's saying that, okay, given that, now I would speak more carefully about this if it wasn't so obvious, the distinction between how good the older times orders were and how bad the current orders are. And therefore, he's not going to feel any problem about this. I hope that young person will read this and do this. In other words, I spirited saying that I may understand that the former and of the latter, so that the spirit of the youth may read these writings of mine and flee and prepare themselves to imitate the former, and flee the latter sins, the latter problems, the current problems, right? The current world, the way it is now, to flee the horrible times of now, and to go in the future to bring about the imitate the former of what time fortune may give opportunity for it. For it is the duty of a good man to teach others the good that you can. It is a duty of a good man to teach others the good that you could not work because of the malignity of the times and fortune. so that when many are capable of it, some of them more loved by heaven may be able to work it. In other words, if you know what's good, but you're not able, maybe the fortune has maligned you. In other words, that your situation does not allow you. You know what's good, but fortune does not. You should be praising. In other words, so there's for it is a duty of a good man to teach others the good that you could not work because of the malignity of times and of fortune, so that when many are capable of it, some of them more loved by heaven may be able to work it. You do it for the love of the future, love of those. The good man must do this. And having spoken in the discourses of the book above of decisions made by the Romans pertaining to inside of the city, right? First book. In this book, I will speak of those that of the Roman people made pertaining to the increase of its empire. How do you increase the world of its control of the other places outside, external? So the first was internal, book 1, internal. This is going to be external. Here endeth the lesson of the preface. And we'll continue this and we'll look at chapter 1 of book 2 next. We'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, please put them here and I'll respond to them when I see them. If you like it, hit the like button. Please hit the like button. It helps the algorithm. Like it, share the video on your social media, share it far and wide, share it, bring it to other people's attentions, share it on email to people. And if you've not subscribed, subscribe. Why? So that you get you'll get the notifications of future videos, but also it helps commenting, liking, sharing, and subscribing. All of this affects the algorithm and it helps people searching for things be able to find it more effectively. If you didn't like it, you can always thumbs down it, but say why in the comments so people can learn and benefit. Correct me, and people can then benefit from it. Other viewers can watch it. Another thing you can do is you want to follow me on social media. The social media links are below. And if you want to know more about me as a scholar and as a researcher, the academic social media links below, the social media links are where you can check things out. Last but not least, if you want to help me, do you want to help me pay, contribute to doing what I do here? You can do so through Patreon or Subscribestar, or through or by buying one of my books listed below through either your bookstore or an online distributor like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Libris, Book Depositories, so forth, or by the publishers themselves. Well, with that, we'll see you guys next time when we look at Book 2, Chapter 1. Take care and have a good day.